In 2018, the LGBTQ world was gifted with a gem of a movie in the form of Love, Simon, which not only was my favorite film that year, but I argue that that movie is just as memorable, timeless, and significant as previous teen classics like The Breakfast Club and 10 Things I Hate About You. Love, Simon is that good, and we've never been given a strong romantic comedy for the LGBTQ community quite like that. For those who haven't seen Love, Simon, I implore you to change that as soon as possible. I even did a review for that movie a couple years back, and so I will link that in the description down below if you want to see my full review of that film. So now we have Love, Victor, which is a spin-off series that takes place in the world of Love, Simon, but set just a few years later and revolving around a totally different and new kid struggling with his sexual identity, and we're introduced to a slew of brand new characters. And given how much I loved Love, Simon, I was extremely excited to see if lightning could strike twice in Love, Victor, and I kept hoping and praying that the show would find its footing with every single episode. But I'm very sad to report that I was very disappointed in Love, Victor. There are a couple redeemable things about it, and there's potential for season 2. But I'm going to break down why this show simply didn't work nearly as well for me as I would have liked, and why it doesn't hold up to the magic and amazingness that Love, Simon initially presented as a film. For me, the two biggest things that a film or television series needs to get right in order for me to be on board is the script and then the acting. You need a solid foundation of a story with interesting characters and engaging dialogue to work with, and then you need the right actors who can carry these characters in strength. And sadly, the biggest problem for me in Love, Victor came from the sloppy and semi-shallow script, mixed with some pretty cheesy dialogue throughout the entire season. And because I take issue with the script and what the actors have to work with, that makes the performances of the actors less enjoyable for me. Before I get into details, I will warn you that there are slight spoilers in my commentary that I'm going to break down, but I won't give away major plot elements or twists. But if you'd prefer to not know anything about the show, I recommend you turn this off now, go ahead and watch the show, and then come back and hear the rest of this review. So consider this your final warning for some minor spoilers. As for the story and the plot, I felt the progression of Victor's journey and him dealing with his feelings on whether or not he was gay started out promising, but I felt they dragged certain plot points out way too long, and it felt frustrating. The best example of this is Victor entering into a relationship with a girl early on in the season, and even though I find this particular plot element interesting and relatable as he struggles to figure out his sexual identity, I definitely felt this was dragged on far too long, taking up most of the season. Plus, I wish they would have explored elements of Victor's family life, and specifically the fact that he grew up in a religious household and what his coming out could be like in that situation. I would have been even more interested in that premise over the girlfriend storyline, or at least cut the girlfriend storyline shorter to explore this other premise, but sadly, that element of his religious upbringing is barely touched upon. I also think that the show tries to explore too many individual storylines that detract from Victor's journey, and this applies to everyone, from his parents, his sister, and every single one of his friends, and even the parents of his girlfriend. There was a lot of story happening to many different people, and not all of it was bad, but I felt about half of it could have been cut because it took away from Victor and made me wish that we had more meat padded to the script for his overall story, because it needed it. The humor of the show has its moments. I laughed probably at about 20% of the jokes, but sadly, the rest felt like the type of humor you'd see on a Disney Channel show or ABC Family comedy. There are characters like Victor's best friend or Victor's sister that are played way over the top in their respective performances that definitely came off more like caricatures. Also, I was annoyed how they handled all the teen romances and how everyone is pining for someone else within the same circle of 6 characters. Like, we've seen that so many times before in teen shows. But if the script and dialogue had been sharper, maybe it wouldn't have annoyed me as much. But this show falls prey to so many cliche teen melodrama type moments that I could barely stomach. Now, my 2 favorite characters on this show are, one, Natasha Rothwell, who plays Miss Albright, the assistant school principal, and then Nick Robinson, who plays the infamous Simon from the Love, Simon movie. Now, these 2 characters on this show have 2 very important things in common. And that is, one, they are both from the feature film of Love, Simon, which made for such a welcome surprise when I saw both of them on screen in this show, and they both brought so much life and energy in their performances. But the second thing that they have in common is that they are both literally in one scene in the entire season of the show and can simply be described as cameos. I won't give away the context, but the scene where Simon shows up made me literally giddy on my couch, and I freaked out. It was definitely my favorite scene in the entire first season, and it made me miss the movie and the characters of Love, Simon that much more. And isn't it telling that my 2 favorite characters on this show were played by 2 actors from the movie who only get 1 scene each? But if I am going off of the new characters in Love, Victor, I'd say the 3 standouts for me, if I had to narrow it down, were Anna Ortiz as Victor's mom, Ali Wong as one of the teachers at the school, and then Michael Cimino as Victor himself. But really only because he is forced to carry this show and is given the most screen time. But that doesn't make his performance all that groundbreaking still. And it's not his fault. In fact, I don't blame any of the other actors. This is simply a matter of a poorly constructed script with a lot of cliche dialogue that these actors have to deliver. Now, one of my biggest qualms was also the ending. I won't tell you what happens, but it left me feeling very shortchanged, and I don't think this show took the story nearly as far as it deserved for its first season. Now, I understand leaving us on a cliffhanger, that's fine, and leaving room to explore the next step in Victor's journey as a teenage guy coming out of the closet, but with how little we got in terms of payoff in this first season, it almost felt like being left with blue balls by the end. It was annoying. Now, this show was intended for Disney Plus, funnily enough, but ended up being shelved over to Hulu since Disney found some of the commentary on teen sex, some mild language, and innuendos a bit too mature for its family-friendly audience on Disney Plus. And that being said, I personally found this show to be just sugar-coated enough to where I see no reason why it shouldn't be on Disney Plus. But given that it's now on Hulu, which gives them more freedom to integrate more mature elements into their content, my hope is that they seize this new opportunity to sharpen the edges of this show and the writing in a way that makes it less cringe for season 2. I can see why they may have settled for safer tweeny bopper comedy drama in the beginning, since it was supposed to be on Disney Plus. But now that that ship has sailed, let's hope that the writers can bring more nuance to this material going forward. Now, as for the things that I liked about the show, I will say that I appreciate a lot of the story elements that are introduced and the diversity amongst the cast. There is a large variety of family challenges and teenage challenges that I bet a lot of people will be able to find some that they definitely relate to. I do appreciate that they gave us a glimpse into the window of many different variety of people and elements within the gay world itself that I found was a refreshing premise had it just been constructed better from a script standpoint. So I admire them for the effort in presenting a wide range of families and communities and different individuals and situations to challenge our young characters with, and even some of the adult characters. I do like most of the cast themselves, and I'm hoping that the better writing for season 2 will help course correct some characters and give this talented cast more meaty dialogue to chew on, because I do think that the talent is there. So I will say, with how big a cliffhanger this season does end on, I definitely will be tuning in to season 2, but that's only because I kind of view this first season as one big prolonged setup for the actual juicy, engaging storyline of a boy's journey in coming out. It's annoying and a little bit tedious as to what we actually got for this first season, but I'm not giving up on Love, Victor just yet. Love, Simon as a film was smart, grounded, funny, clever, but also fleeting, relatable, and also whimsical. And I can't stress enough how much I love that film. And I'm sorry to say that Love, Victor hardly captured anywhere near the same amount of magic for me, but I'm hopeful that it's able to find its footing for season 2, learn from its mistakes, and also be able to expand upon its writing capabilities since it's not having to commit to Disney+. I give them credit for presenting a slew of different characters in many different compelling situations and giving us a different coming out story for Victor that doesn't simply copy from Simon. And he's able to stand out on his own and definitely has me interested enough to see where his story takes him. So the intention behind this show is still good, and the foundational beats they set in place are not bad at all, even though the final execution did ultimately leave me frustrated. I'm going to give season 1 of Love, Victor a C. And that's my review of Love, Victor, which you can watch on Hulu. I'm curious to know what you all think of the show, and so I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Feel free to leave those down below. And as always, thank you all again for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Ryan Bailey, signing off. Bye, everyone.